Story 1. She had been actively trying to get pregnant, and she was sleeping with multiple guys willing to help her. After she got pregnant, her 12-year-old sister decided to go that same route, and was also successful in that. Their family didn't believe in abortion, so even the 12-year-old gave birth. Anyway, the older girl dropped out of school to stay home taking care of the baby. I believe her parents were paying most of it. I ran into her like 4 years later. She was bad-mouthing the guy who got her pregnant, telling me how he wasn't paying enough child support, and how when he was 15 and slept with her, that he knew she was trying to get pregnant, so he should have expected to be paying until the child was 18. I am in no way implying that she did not deserve child support, but I do want to imply both were too immature to make a choice to bring a baby into the world. He also ended up dropping out of high school so he could work full-time, but he was working minimum wage trying to come up with child support. Whole situation was very sad to see. I don't know what happened to her little sister. My sister and the little sister had been close friends, but once she got pregnant, my uber-religious family forbade my sister from ever talking to her. Otherwise, I might have heard over the years. Story 2. Girl I knew had family issues. Lots of fighting among her parents led to divorce, and years of ongoing conflict after. Don't want to say classic case of seeks any affection possible from all the wrong people, but yeah. We were friends in the sense that I stood up for her when others made fun of her, and we kept in touch after, but never anything physical between the two of us. Could be that's why we remained friends. I always just thought of her as someone I knew and talked to sometimes. She told me years later that I was one of her only friends in school. Damn, I felt like an for not realizing how much a little kindness meant to her at the time. She was smart intellectually, but emotionally stunted and slept with dozens of people. Despite using birth control, she got pregnant from one of them. She got an abortion. It served as a wake-up call for her. So she doubled down on her studies after, graduated half a semester early, got away from her lousy family, went to a good college, and then joined the military. Her experiences in Afghanistan messed her up even more. But last time we spoke, she had left the service and had been traveling the world, and ended up getting married to someone she met on her travels. We haven't spoken in the last few years, but I hope she found peace. You're a good person. Not many kids stand up for others out of fear of getting bullied themselves. So that was quite brave. And you're right. A little kindness does go a long way. Thank you for saying so, but I don't want to toot my own horn. Until we connected about a dozen years after graduating, I didn't remember us being close at all. She was very much a school friend, and one I wouldn't even think of if you asked me to name people in my social group in school. Not because I was purposefully debating whether she would count as a friend, but because I wouldn't even think of her. I only told my friends who were bad-mouthing her while she was within earshot to shut up, and talked her up a bit. And only because it irked me that they were being jerks. Not because I cared much about her as a person. Like many high schoolers, I had my head up my own ass. So it wasn't altruistic besides feeling, stop picking on the girl just because she's smarter than you. Story 3. Her mom had her at 16, and she was pregnant at the same age. With hindsight, I think that gave her an advantage. Her youngest is 15, and she's been with the same guy ever since. They live happily in California. He's a Navy lifer, and she works at the post office. Story 4. A girl I went to school with got pregnant at 13 and gave birth after she turned 14. Basically, her parents raised her child as she was a kid herself. She got married later and had more kids. She was bullied a lot in high school. Story 5. Nothing. She's doing fine now. I think she went into engineering. She was in grade 7, and it was just kids messing around as far as I know. Her parents made her get an abortion. This was rural India. Children out of wedlock is so extremely taboo. There was no question of having the child. I absolutely cannot imagine a teenager here having a child. You do not get to choose to keep it. Story 6. I dropped out and moved 2,000 miles to be with the father. We married and had 2 more children. I stayed married to him for 10 years despite the abuse. We were both unhealed people, but he was a horrid father. After I left him, he did to our children what his parents did to him, and he abandoned them. I've been raising them without his help, aside from a tiny amount of CS, for the last 9 years. Our oldest is now a legal adult, which is crazy to think about. She's older than I was when I got pregnant with her. My kids are doing great. I have a nice job and I work hard, but financially, I'm stable. However, my job has nothing to do with my college degrees. I am single and probably will remain so due to my own childhood trauma, which probably contributed to my teen pregnancy. Lots of therapy and self-work later, and I'm happy as a clam. I'm a mold breaker, a breaker of chains, a generational trauma stopper. But I feel horrible as someone who hates my own last name. I ended up having 3 kids who also hate their own last name. Crappy parents suck. Funny how those things play out. I educate my kids on many issues and try to help them make better choices. So far, so good. Other teen moms are doing pretty well too. 2 sets of high school sweethearts who are still together. 1 teen mom who ended up on drugs and lost her kids. We live in a good area and are fortunate to have resources available to help us. Someday, I'd like to get involved in programs to help other less fortunate single moms, as I know it's getting harder. I volunteer when I can and donate what I can. It's been a wild ride. Story 7. I had my son, went back to school, and finished year 12. Got 2 diplomas and a bachelor's degree, and work in hearing support for students in primary and high school. My son is now almost a teenager, and consent has been a big topic of conversation all his life. Story 8. Girl? Singular? We had 2 in middle school, and this was small town Indiana. The most memorable one from high school got married, and they walked across the stage at graduation as Mr. and Mrs. X. 2 wild applause. Sadly, a few months later, they were both killed when a tree fell on their car during a thunderstorm. Story 9. That girl was actually my best friend. She ended up coming back to graduate and went on to raise a very good little girl named Anastasia. Unfortunately, when her daughter was 3, she committed suicide due to deep depression and mania from untreated bipolar. She was such a good mom, an incredible best friend, and I wish every day we could have her back. Story 10. A few weeks after high school graduation, she married the guy, her boyfriend, who got her pregnant. A few weeks afterwards, he joined the army, and they together embarked on the most amazing adventure. Over the years, they've bounced from Alaska, Germany, Japan, and a few posts in the US. They raised an amazing young man as their son. Today, her hubby has retired from the army after 25 years of service to his country. They've retired to Alaska, and they're traveling the US and Canada. Story 11. We didn't have that issue at my high school, but I do know someone who got pregnant sophomore year of college. She dropped out at the end of the semester, had the baby, took care of it for a few months until she could re-enroll, finished the degree, and is now doing very well working for a lab and co-parenting with the father. Her daughter is about 4 to 5 now, and they do fun outdoorsy things like camping, hiking, paddleboarding, all the time. Anyone would be lucky to have her as a parent. Story 12. I am the boyfriend/dad in that situation. My high school girlfriend and I were active and became parents at 16. Her parents were pretty religious and weird, and they kicked her out when they found out. There was a bunch of other stuff in that story too. Anyway, she lived with my family until she qualified for public housing our senior year of high school. We stayed together until we went to college. She really didn't know how to handle freedom. We really diverged there. She got into partying and developed a drug problem. One day, when our son was about 4, she just left. A friend with benefits of hers, who had been a good friend of mine, was at her apartment. She ran an errand and left our kid with a friend. Several hours later, the friend called my parents and said he didn't think she was coming back. A few weeks later, a letter showed up in the mail. She relinquished all of her parental rights and just walked away. Suddenly, I was a 20-year-old single parent of a 4-year-old, with lots of help from my parents. Lots of court proceedings later, she had no idea, it was a done deal. I had to pay myself child support for many years, but I had sole custody. Funny story, I did actually have to pay myself. It was a nominal amount, $15 a week, but I had to write myself a check and deposit it every week to establish the paper trail. Once a year, I'd have to turn it in to show that I was receiving it from myself. Then I could get my tax refund. Anyway, I digress. My mom insisted that I finish college, and I did. And by then, I'd met a wonderful woman who would eventually become my wife. My high school girlfriend popped out a few more kids with a few more guys and bounced from dead-end job to dead-end job for a few years. She finally got clean in our early 30s and reconnected with our daughter. Kid is 29 now and has her own place. Her mom, my ex, moved in with her last year as her tenant. Apparently, she, my ex, works some clerical job somewhere and keeps up on her rent. I talk to my daughter pretty regularly. She knows how not to get drawn into any of her mom's drama. It's sad that she's good at keeping that distance, but also she's pretty well practiced at it. My daughter went to college and has all sorts of her own hobbies, music, art, etc., a good group of friends, and a stable romantic relationship. She's built a pretty good life for herself. It was a tough road for a while, but we're all doing well these days. I've really got to give a shout out to my mom for keeping it all together for those couple of years that made such a huge difference. Story 13. I am a girl. It was a rough road, but I'm now living my best life. Took me till my 40s, but now, with way grown children, I still have some youth left to experience some cool stuff. I was the girl with a messed up abusive family, seeking attention anywhere I could find it. I wish I could go back and hug her. She deserved love way more than I do now. She was just a kid. Story 14. My biological mom had me when she was 16. She gave me up for adoption. A whole 18 years passed, and I finally got to meet her. She went back and finished high school, worked as an accountant, and recently left her job to go look after her dying aunt. She never got married and never had any kids after me. She is an amazing woman, and I think she made the right decision giving me up for adoption. I do feel bad for her, as I think she never really lived a full life. I think it killed a little bit of her, but she seems happy and moving along, so I'm rooting for her. Story 15. She ended up resenting the baby, dated a bunch of losers. She lost temporary custody of her son after one of her crappy boyfriends badly beat him. A few months after she got custody back, when he was in kindergarten, she made him walk to school by himself, and he got hit by a car, messed his leg up really bad. He grew up very angry, very misbehaved, and now he's basically a drain on society. I have always blamed his mother for this. Story 16. She had a bipolar mother who was severely abusive to her and her siblings. She got pregnant freshman year and had her baby when she was 15. She stayed in school and graduated with a cosmetology certificate. At age 19, she got into a relationship with an addict and eventually started doing heroin and meth. She got arrested for manufacturing methamphetamine in her house while her kid was also there. She was in prison for 5 years. She's been sober now for 8 years, and she's an addiction counselor. Her son, unfortunately, was not as lucky. He's currently in prison for armed robbery. The poor kid never had a chance. Story 17. She was a major party girl and had issues with her baby's father. Fast forward 5 years, her and the father have worked things out, and he's involved in the child's life. They have a house together, and despite all the challenges, she pursued her dream to become a nurse, and is absolutely thriving in life. We don't talk much anymore, but I am so proud of her, and have always silently rooted for her. Story 18. Over 20 years ago, my best friend got pregnant in high school. She was very poor. Her mother had intense mental health issues, and she lived in squalor in the worst part of an already crappy town. She married the guy. They're still together. They have 2 kids now. Both her kids just made Eagle Scout rank. I'm proud of her. She seems happy and like a very caring and involved mother. Story 19. She ended up pregnant at 14. Had 2 more kids by her baby daddy like 1 year post-graduation. Then, like 6 years ago, it was discovered he recorded a video of him forcing himself onto his eldest daughter. When she discovered the video, she turned him in. His parents were defending him way too hard. They blamed the baby mama for the trauma her daughter was gonna go through because, in their words, if she didn't know about it, then she'll be fine. Yeah, the gross MFer is still in prison. Story 20. There was one specific gal that got pregnant in my high school. There were several, maybe during sophomore year, not sure of the age. I remember seeing that baby at many high school functions, football games, concerts, etc., until she graduated, I think. We were in different grades, but I remember that child was like a full-on toddler the last time I saw her. This was a gal I wasn't friends with and didn't really know, but the little girl appeared to be well cared for and loved. I'm assuming they're doing well, at least I hope so. I knew of other girls who had abortions, and one that gave her baby up for adoption. I think about them from time to time. Story 21. Beautiful girl, honor student, involved in activities. Fell for and got pregnant by another friend of mine twice. 2 abortions senior year. Went to a good college next state over and stripped her way through. Went to a good law school. Graduated, working as a lawyer still. Got married to another lawyer and has 2 beautiful girls both in high school now. Story 22. One had the kid in 8th grade, came back to school, and graduated. I hope her life is going well. She had a very rough life and had a rough exterior, but she was a really caring person. Another one got preggo at 16, went to alternative school, graduated, married the guy who knocked her up, and became a super judgmental right-wing evangelical Christian, hating on gays and girls who got pregnant before marriage. She had to be reminded that she was a teen mom too. She was nice prior to all of that. Now, I have nothing to do with her or her family. Story 23. Friend of mine had a baby at 16. She didn't lose any friends, and her family was supportive. She ended up starting her own business from the home, and the kid is now grown up and in med school. Oh, and the important part. We live in a place where religious zealotry doesn't take precedence over the love of family. Real education is given in all schools. Planned Parenthood is well funded and a place to get support and, plan being a parent. And state assistance programs make sure mom and baby are fed. I'm sure there are bad stories around here too, but I'm also sure there are less than most places. Story 24. She had her daughter in 2007 and fell into a deep depression, got into drugs pretty badly, and was in and out of abusive relationships. In 2018, she finally got sober and has been working hard to create a better life for herself and her daughter, and to repair their mother-daughter relationship ever since. Nearly 17 years after having her first child, she owns a home, is in a healthy, loving relationship, and is expecting her second daughter. She's me. Story 25. She got married to the father first, then divorced him and married some dumb after that. I saw an interaction between her oldest kid and that second husband. He was going to take his son someplace fun, but the oldest son, by the other guy, couldn't go. This happened in a church parking lot. That oldest son ended up taking his own life. I think about that girl a lot. She was super popular in school. I don't think she was rich, but she was funny. She was a cheerleader that hung out with all the right people. She walked across the graduation stage pregnant. After that, she worked in a factory. It was hard work. Her looks went away. She always kept a positive outlook, but maybe that was just for everyone to see. She smoked and drank. I wonder how different it would have been had her mother actually raised her instead of her grandma, which happens a lot in these small towns. Story 26. My experience was from 6th grade, so not high school. She was 10 when she got pregnant and 11 when she gave birth. Her mom basically raised the baby because an 11-year-old is not capable of raising a child. By the time she was 23, she had 6 kids by 5 different guys. I have no clue why her mom didn't put her on birth control after the first baby, because she had 2 more in high school. She also became a grandma at 26. Story 27. She got dumped immediately upon finding out she was pregnant, gave birth at 15, birth father immediately signed away all rights, she graduated high school on honor roll, met her future husband at 18, married him at 21, and they all 3 lived happily ever after. The baby is now a lovely adult. It's me. I'm the girl that got pregnant. Story 28. It was me. I graduated 8 months pregnant, scrapped my college plans, and ended up getting a job as a receptionist at a doctor's office. Parents let me stay at home and helped me. worked my way up, and learned a bunch about insurance billing in the process. At this point, I'm married, not to her dad, and have a home, 3 kids total, and 2 giant dogs. I work from home for a doctor that I respect, who pays me well. My daughter is now 19 and a college sophomore, with her sights set on grad school.